There is one appointment every human being will keep, no exception, no negotiation, no extension: death. And yet, remarkably, it is the one appointment most of us spend our entire lives refusing to think about. We fill our hours with noise and distraction and busyness, not because life is so full, but because the silence might force us to face the one truth we would rather leave unexamined. I am going to die, and so is everyone I love. But here is what 3 of the greatest civilizations in human history discovered about that truth. Facing it directly, not avoiding it, not performing indifference to it, but genuinely looking at it with clear and honest eyes, does not make life darker. It makes it luminous. Today we explore what that means through the Stoics of ancient Greece, through the Buddhist and Vedic wisdom of ancient India, and through the Taoist and Confucian masters of ancient China. Stay with me, because what these ancient voices discovered about death will not prepare you to die. It will teach you how to live. It will not just teach you how to live, it will show you how to live in a way that leaves something worth leaving behind. Not monuments, not achievements, not recognition, but the quiet legacy of a life lived with complete integrity, fully present, faithfully purposeful, genuinely human. The Stoics had a practice so confronting that most people recoil from it the first time they encounter it. They called it Memento Mori. Remember that you will die, not as morbid fixation, not as performance of wisdom, but as the most clarifying lens available to a human being. Marcus Aurelius returned to it again and again in his meditations. Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what is left and live it properly. Think of yourself as dead, not in despair, in liberation. When you truly absorb the reality of your own mortality, the trivial reveals itself as trivial. The essential reveals itself as essential. The argument that felt so important, trivial. The recognition you were waiting for, trivial. The approval you could not live without, trivial. The conversation you kept postponing with someone you love, essential. The work that genuinely matters to you, essential. The present moment, this one, irreplaceable. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Perfection of character is this, to live each day as if it were your last, without frenzy, without apathy, without pretense, without frenzy, not rushing to accomplish everything before time runs out, without apathy, not collapsing into nihilism because nothing lasts, without pretense, not performing a relationship with mortality you do not actually have." Epictetus said, "Do not seek to have events happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly." Applied to death, do not wish for immortality. Do not wish for more time than you are given. Wish instead to use completely the time that is actually yours. Seneca wrote his most powerful words on this theme. Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. Balance life's books each day. The man who has done this has nothing to fear from death, because he has left nothing important undone. The Bhagavad Gita opens with a man confronting death, not his own death, though that was present on the battlefield too, but the deaths of everyone he loved. And Krishna's response to Arjuna's grief is the most radical teaching on death in any philosophical tradition. He says, "Never the spirit was born. The spirit shall cease to be never. Never was time it was not. End and beginning are dreams. Birthless and deathless and changeless remaineth the spirit forever. Death hath not touched it at all, dead though the house of it seems. Death hath not touched it at all. The Gita does not deny that the body dies, that relationships end, that the form we inhabit will return to the elements from which it came. It says something more radical. What you fundamentally are has never been born and will never die. The Atman, the true self, is not the body, not the personality, not the accumulation of memories and achievements and roles. It is the eternal witness, the awareness that observes all of these things and is untouched by their ending. If this is true, then death is not the ending of what you are. It is the ending of one form through which what you are has been expressing itself. The Upanishads say, as a person puts on new garments yet giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. The Buddha approached death from a different angle, but arrived at the same shore. He taught that the fear of death is rooted in attachment, specifically in the attachment to the continuation of the self. We fear death because we are fiercely attached to the idea that this particular configuration of thoughts and memories and preferences called I must continue indefinitely. But what if the I is not what we think it is? What if, looked at carefully, the self is not a fixed permanent thing, but a flowing process, arising and passing away moment by moment? The Buddhist meditator who sits with this question long enough discovers something extraordinary. That the fear of death begins to dissolve, not because death becomes less real, but because the fixed self that was afraid of dying becomes less solid. Death and the self that fears it arise together, and together, examined honestly, they can be released together. Zhuangzi's wife died. His friend Huizi came to offer his condolences and found Zhuangzi sitting on the ground, singing, beating time on a bowl. Huizi was shocked. You lived with her. She raised your children. She grew old with you. That you should not mourn is bad enough. But singing, beating a bowl, surely this is too much. And Zhuangzi replied, when she first died, do you think I did not grieve? But I looked back to her beginning, before she was born, before there was a body, before there was even a spirit. In the midst of the jumble of wonder and mystery, a change took place, and she had a spirit. Another change, and she had a body. Another change, and she was born. Now there has been another change, and she is dead. It is just like the progression of the 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Now she lies peacefully in a vast room. If I were to follow after her bawling and sobbing, it would show I do not understand anything about fate. So I stopped. What Zhuangzi is not saying, do not grieve, do not love, do not feel the loss. He is saying, grieve, feel it completely. And then, when you look clearly at what death actually is, not through the lens of fear, but through the lens of the Tao, you see that it is one more change in an endless process of change. The same process that brought this person into being has now taken them through another door. Lao Tzu wrote, to the mind that is still, the whole universe surrenders. The whole universe, including its most feared truth, surrenders to the still mind. Death is not the enemy of life. It is life's most honest teacher. Confucius, when asked about death, gave an answer that has puzzled and illuminated for 2,000 years. A student asked, Master, what lies beyond death? Confucius replied, you do not yet know how to live. How can you know death? Not evasion, not avoidance, the deepest possible wisdom. Learn to live fully, completely, presently, with attention and virtue, and genuine engagement. And death, when it comes, will find you ready. Not because you have solved its mystery, but because you have lived its opposite so completely that nothing essential remains undone. 3 civilizations, 3 encounters with the one appointment none of us can cancel, and 3 versions of the same wisdom. Marcus Aurelius sat before dawn and thought of himself as dead, not in despair, but to see his life clearly, to know what mattered, to waste nothing. The Bhagavad Gita looked at death and said, "You are looking at the wrong thing. The body dies. What you are does not." Zhuangzi sat on the ground after his wife died and sang, not because grief was wrong, but because he had looked clearly enough at the nature of things to see that death is one more movement in the dance of the Tao. They never met each other. They never read each other's words. And yet, one truth: death is not the opposite of life. It is life's most clarifying companion, its most honest teacher, its most reliable reminder of what actually matters. The Stoic calls it Memento Mori. Remember that you will die, and live accordingly. The Gita calls it the deathless Atman. You were never born and will never die, so act without fear. The Taoist calls it one more seasonal change. The same Tao that brought you here will carry you onward. Flow with it. One truth, 3 voices. How to face death without fear. Live so completely, love so openly, act so faithfully that when death arrives, it finds nothing essential left undone. Subscribe to One Truth, Many Voices, where every week we sit with the greatest minds of Greece, India, and China and listen for the wisdom beneath all their words. One Truth, Many Voices, Many Paths. See you next week.